Shirley
Uh,
Novack. Welcome to the show.
that's me.
That is you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. The weather is beautiful. It's not snowing yet, and it's great out. I'm alive.
Yeah, every
That's
day
about it.
above the dirt is a gift, right?
That's right. And you know what? You're absolutely right.
Yep,
It is.
absolutely. So let's start out the interview with something cheery. Your neighbor was killed by the Boston Strangler. Not everybody can say that. You know, not to make light of the
Yes.
Boston Strangler.
You, you know what? I was young and too ignorant of what was going on to really be afraid of it. I found it very exciting. And when my friend around the corner lived across the street from a woman who was strangled by the Boston Strangler, we suddenly had police everywhere. And I found that, some people would be very frightened of it. I found it very exciting. I mean, I always loved crime, like true crime was
Yeah,
always a passion for me. I don't know, I love Dragnet, you
me
know,
too. I watched
that
all
was
the
one of my
Dragnets.
favorite
Yes.
TV shows.
Yep.
Yeah, and I loved anything dealing with crime and murder and mayhem. Um, yeah, I don't know why, but I did. Even as a little girl, my mother would give me some money and say, "Go get a toy," and I'd come back with either a slingshot or bows and arrows, and she'd say, "Oh, you know what?" I was a real tomboy. I did outgrow that, but I don't know where it came from. I was
Okay.
born that way.
That's funny. I watched there was a special on about the Boston Strangler. I think it's a couple of years old. So I watched that a couple nights ago. 13 women were killed in the 60s. I think it was 63 and 64. I mean, what was that like for your family? And how old were you when all this was going on?
I believe I was 14 when that was going on.
Okay, so
And
teenager,
as far
yeah.
as my family, it wasn't something they would ever discuss with me.
Really?
My parents only would talk about nice things and good things. They tried to shield me. It
Oh,
didn't work,
okay.
but yeah,
Interesting.
we spoke about it and it was amazing. He was everywhere.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a huge, huge deal back then. And then I was watching that special, and the last homicide was um, solved with DNA, and that was tied to Albert DeSalvo, but they
Yep.
couldn't tie the 12 other ones to him. So then, the premise of the movie that I watched was there was probably three Boston Stranglers.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Okay. How did I
they
miss that?
Yep, it wasn't, well, according, I mean, who knows if it's true, not true, whatever, but they're saying that it was more than one person. The MO was, he would sexually assault his victim and strangle them and tie like their pantyhose around their neck and make a bow out of it. And he but the problem was it was all different ages of these women, and that's kind of odd. There wasn't like a certain like MO for him that way. And the slant of this movie was there was more than one. So who knows if it's true or not or whatever, but it was interesting.
Well,
Did
they
your mom?
stopped when he was,
Yes,
I'm
you're right.
sorry. What?
No, yeah, but there was like three of them in this mental institution together. And yeah, it was very interesting the slant that they're taking on it. But my question to you is, did your mom say, it's like, take extra precautions? Were you like, being a little more careful?
I, my parents were Eastern European. They were I really think they were oblivious. My mother, I mean, even when she was 35, she was an old person. And my father just worked day and night, 7 days a week. So they didn't discuss it. I don't even know what of the situation. It was major for everybody else.
Yeah, interesting. Very. Now, did you have other siblings?
I have two older brothers.
Okay. Okay. All righty. No.
Yeah. And but they were not like they were out of the house at that point.
Oh, okay.
They were much were either married or in college.
Gotcha.
And so I was like an only child for a long time.
Okay. So, you have this
Ugh,
interest in true crime and being a police officer. Why not become a cop?
because it was not allowed. I mean, first of all, my parents were very they were very uh, they were very strict about me going to. I wanted to go to college, and my father said, "No, you're only going to get married and have children, so it's a waste of money for you to go to college." And
Wow.
he said, "You can become a secretary or a receptionist." But that wasn't what I wanted. And fortunately, I was strong enough. I worked day and night after school, and um, I couldn't go to a 4-year college mainly because in those days in Boston, if you were in the Boston public schools, you had to decide in the ninth grade whether or not you were going to go to college. If
Wow.
you were going to college, you couldn't take shorthand and typing. If you were not going to college, you could take shorthand and typing, but you couldn't take any of the liberal arts courses. I mean,
Wow.
isn't that sick? That's sick.
That blows
So
my mind. Wow.
yep. So I had to take shorthand and typing, but the one thing that was a science course. And I took the science course in biology because of class, right? So I did not have, I didn't have the enough liberal arts courses to apply to college.
Yeah.
But one day I knocked over a table at the guidance counselor's office, and there was a new program at a junior high as you could take a. I said, "This is for me.
I'm sorry, you blanked
I
out
have
on that.
enough
What
credits."
was it?
Okay. I knocked over a table with all these brochures on it,
Yeah.
and there was a school in Boston that was offering a 2-year program in medical assisting.
Oh, okay. Cool. All
And I had
right.
enough science credits that I could,
You
and
could
I
apply for that.
applied.
Okay.
I
You know,
did.
that just
And
I'm just thinking to myself, when I was a freshman in high school, I had my head firmly up my butt. I didn't know which end is. Yeah, it's like, really? I couldn't,
yeah.
there's no way. It's like, gee, I think I'll go to college in 4 years and major in this. I mean, most kids that are going to college don't even know what they're doing in college, for God's sakes. How many times you change, majors and all that kind of stuff? That's so unfair.
I was always in an advanced English class
Okay.
because I that we applied for that, and my English teacher allowed me to take it because I was advanced in English.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I couldn't take the other, I didn't have algebra. I never had chemistry or, trigonometry or
Yeah,
anything
sure.
like that.
Okay. Now,
So I couldn't apply.
yeah,
Yeah.
getting back to like you wanting to be a police officer, what would you do or how would you react if one of your kids said they want to become a cop?
You know what? Anytime my kids have wanted to do something that wasn't really my favorite thing, I said, the fact that you have the freedom to do it means I've brought you up right.
Yeah,
I would never stop. I would never stop them from doing what they wanted to do if they really wanted to do it. And they've all become very, very successful in their careers.
awesome.
None of them are married. That's not,
Oh no, no grandchildren.
but yeah, they follow their paths and they've
Yeah.
become successful. So if they said, "I want to be a cop," how could I deny them that?
Okay. I know some moms would have a problem with that, but like you said, if your kid's hell bent on something, they're just gonna hate you more if you say no. So I get it.
But you know what else I cop is that you have another family, you have camaraderie with
Oh yeah.
people. It's like working in a hospital. There's so much camaraderie there. It's like because you spend so many hours working and you're with doctors and nurses and technicians, and you form your own family.
Yeah, and
Everybody has the same interest.
absolutely. And sometimes when you're under very stressful situations, that bonds you even more.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
definitely with that. So so you went into the medical field then?
but not only did I go into the medical field, I was doing an internship in the lab at BU Medical Center, and there was a research team there doing research on the unborn.
Okay,
They were operating on the unborn. Of course, in those days, they weren't human unborns,
sure.
but this fascinated me. So they wanted someone with a master's degree, and I had an associate's degree. But I read everything I could about this team, and I applied for the job, which my mother said, "You'll never, what are you wasting your time for? You'll never get it." I got it. They said, "We really wanted someone with a master's degree, but your enthusiasm is so overwhelming. We have to hire you."
Oh,
Besides,
that's awesome.
I was cheaper, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yes.
So they actually sent me to the University of Rochester Medical School to take a crash course in hematology.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome. I mean, really. And I worked there until federal funding became, non-existent.
Okay.
Nixon was in. And so some days I'd go in and I'd read a book or I'd do nothing. And then all of a sudden I'd be there 48 hours straight running an experiment.
Wow.
So a school opened in Boston for medical assisting, and I applied for that because
Okay.
I said, I can't do this anymore. And I ended up being a teacher at this school, teaching the medical assisting program
Hmm.
and teaching anatomy and physiology to the entire school.
Very cool.
And I did that till I had my second child. That
Okay.
was the best job in the world.
Oh, that's great. Now, I was
Yeah.
going through your bio, and one thing that jumped out at me is like you're detained by the Secret Service and the police for being a suspected terrorist. Tell us about that.
um, when I was 32, 33, 30, when I was 35, I went to work for two interior designers. I had hired them and they ended up hiring me. Weird.
Okay.
So after 3 years, I opened my own interior design business, which I had for 40. I still have it. I'm still doing it.
Wow. Okay.
So one day I had a small table coming in on an airplane. And I'm sorry. Um, and the airplane was coming into the cargo area at Boston Logan Airport, and I had never been there. It's off in no man's land. So I went to the cargo area, and the table was not on the plane, and they said it'll be on the next plane at 7:30. I said, okay, I'll go to the terminal and have dinner, and I'll come back at 7:30.
Sure.
So meanwhile, I go to leave, and all of a sudden I'm stopped by a state trooper. Entourage goes by of state troopers, limousines with the American flag, more state troopers and police. And I figured they know where they're going. I don't know where I'm going. So I followed them. And I came to an abrupt stop at the end of a private runway. And actually, it was Colin Powell getting on the plane. He had just spoken at Harvard's commencement.
Okay.
And I'm surrounded by Secret Service. And I'm in a van with tinted windows.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So I'm trying to explain, really, I'm not trying, and I couldn't leave. I tried to leave and my car would stall. I couldn't leave, but they wouldn't talk to me. So the plane takes off and they all go into a building and my car backs up. I can work it. So I went into the service station at the airport and they said, something's wrong with my car. I don't want to get stuck, on the way home. And I explained to him what happened. And he starts laughing. I had a phone hardwired in my car at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, I bet your phone's dead.
Oh,
And sure
jeez.
enough, my phone was dead. And he said, because the Secret Service has a device where they cannot stop you if you're in motion, but they can prevent you from leaving. It
Oh, okay.
interferes with the electrical work in my car, but it kills the cells in your phone. So I came home. The table was not on the 7:30 plane either.
Oh, ouch.
So I come home and I said to my then husband, I said, "Wow, what a story I have! This is amazing." He says, "Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? You could have been arrested. You could be in jail." And I said, "No, I got a great story out of this." And I wasn't afraid because I knew I had done nothing wrong.
Right.
Um, but it's not put on the terrorist watch list. But we were in the middle of Desert Storm, and Colin Powell was probably one of the most important men in the country
Oh,
at the time.
absolutely. Yes.
So that gave me a great story. and,
That is funny. I like that. That's good.
and then
So,
the second time was just a few years ago.
okay.
I was going to Italy and I was taking a medication with me that had to be refrigerated.
Yeah.
So I had it packed in ice. And I called the airlines and I said, I'm bringing medicine with a syringe and will that be okay? Oh yeah, don't worry about it. So I put it through TSA, put it through the machine, and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by TSA agents.
Yeah.
And they said, "Is that your blue package over there?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "What's in it?" And I said, "Medicine." And they said, "It looks like there's a bomb in there."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I said, "Oh no, let me show you." And they said, "No, no, no, don't touch it." So they take me over to this little place on the other end of the airport.
Oh
Meanwhile,
God.
my girlfriend is waiting for me,
Oh no.
and they very, 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 very gingerly go to open the sack because what had happened was the ice had crimped and it looked like wires in the
Oh
machine.
boy.
It looked
Okay.
like wires. So as they're opening the package, I really had to fight against going, boom.
Yeah.
He was, but I didn't. And they were so apologetic and they were so sorry. I said, "Hey, look at, I know I look like a terrorist, but I'm really not." But again, I got a story out of that.
Yeah.
I knew I had done nothing wrong and I wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
But
Now,
yeah.
did you make your plane?
Oh yeah, because we were there hours ahead of time.
Oh, excellent.
Um,
Okay, good.
we were actually going to Italy to take a cooking course.
Oh,
So
how cool is
yeah.
that? Okay. So, I mean, you have some interesting stories here. And then sitting next to a drug mule that the plastic bag like blew up in their stomach. Tell me about that.
I was coming from Houston. My son was working in Houston at the time. Now he's actually back in Houston for the past month. And I was in the aisle, and there was a woman at the window, and there was this guy in between us who was holding on to his seatbelt like he was gonna break it in a minute. He was just cringing, just
Okay.
cringing. And she offered him her newspaper, and he just shook his head no, like just shook his head no.
Yeah.
He would not speak. And then as the plane is descending, he starts screaming and retching in agony. And he jumps over me and falls into the aisle, and he's in the fetal position screaming. And so by the time we landed, the police were all there waiting,
Yeah.
and they came on board and took him out. And the next day in the paper, I mean, I assumed that it was drugs because it was so amazing. I mean, it was just like, wow. And the next day in the news, it was that he had been a mule.
Wow. Where was he coming from? What?
Houston. Well, I mean, I picked up the plane in Houston. I don't
Yeah.
know if that was his original stop, but he could have been Mexico.
That's what I'm thinking. Probably South America or Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So somewhere south.
But the sweat,
Interesting.
like he was sitting there and sweat was just pouring down his face, and you just knew this poor guy was in agony.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And
Wow. That's amazing because I had a couple of instances when I was a cop where we had a woman that was in the booking room as a prostitute, and she started seizing. So, we called the fire department and they worked on her, but she died. And what happened was she had a bunch of drugs in an orifice and it all burst and she overdosed.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I've seen all kinds of just like icky stuff with that. Yeah, just kids, don't do this. Don't try this at home, okay?
I can't even imagine what you have seen and done.
Oh,
It's
just it's gross. But yeah, again, public service announcement. Yeah, kids, stay away from drugs and don't be a mule, okay? That's it. Don't do it. I don't care how much they offer you. It's a bad thing. Very bad. So
yeah.
let's talk about
And that
writing.
that was just about 3 years ago. It
Wow.
wasn't long ago. Oh, it seems to follow me.
That's great. That's good. I mean, it's not great that people are overdosing, but you have some good stories, and that's a perfect segue for what we're going to talk about next is books and writing. So you've always had a flair for writing. Tell us about
Yes.
what your fourth grade teacher said to you and what impact that had on you then and now.
Evidently, it had quite an impact on me because he is the only acknowledgement in my book. In the fourth grade, Mr. Willett, who we were his first class out of college, so he still be alive. I don't know, but he gave us an assignment to write a poem about spring, and he was so impressed with mine that he made me read it to the entire school. And he said to me later, he said, "Don't ever stop writing. You have a real talent. I think someday you're going to be a great writer." And
Wow.
it stuck with me because
Yeah.
I loved to write. I've never published anything before now,
Yeah.
but of course, I help my kids with their term papers and write letters, and I could write. And I thought about my father's story, and it hit me that I'd like to write a book about it. And actually, about 10 years ago, I sat down and began, and then I put it away, and then I began, and then I put it away. Excuse me. And when the pandemic started, I just sat down. It took me a year, and I wrote it.
Outstanding. So the name of
And
the book is The Story of. I
dot,
listened to
dot,
the
dot.
I listened to the audio version and I absolutely loved your book. It's very good. I highly recommend it. So kind of take us through the book. What is it about?
My dad was born in 1904, Koretz, Poland. By the way, it's very important to put the three dots after the title.
Okay.
Story of dot, 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 because all these immigrant country from the beginning of the 20th century have stories. They all have stories.
Sure.
And so this is his story, sort of. But it's amazing how many people have come up to me and said, "Oh, my parents have a story too."
Yep.
But so he was born in 1904, Koretz, Poland. His father was a tyrant. He was a nasty, nasty, mean man who I had the displeasure of meeting.
Okay.
I mean, he really was a horrible person. And when my father was 12 years old, his mother died. Sweet, wonderful woman. And his father came to him and said, I am going to America life, and when I have enough money, I'll send for you. In the meantime, my father and his 9-year-old brother, my father was 12, his brother was 9, were sent to live in the care of a brothel. So, so for 3 years, brothel.
Now, how
And
did how did your father pick a brothel instead of
my
like maybe a relative or
there were no
whatever?
relative there were no relatives. It was my grandfather picked the brothel.
Okay.
And so I can only imagine that he used to go there all the time after his wife died.
Probably,
And
yes.
that's how he knew. So he brought them to the brothel, and they stayed there for 3 years until his father sent for them. And during those 3 years, my dad was a soldier. And I never knew about that part until after my dad died.
You blanked out with that. He was
Okay.
assaulted
He
by a Polish soldier,
he
correct?
was raped by a
Yeah.
Polish soldier while he slept. He woke up to this man on top of him, and he was 15 at the time.
Uh,
And the guy said to him, "If you kill your brother, I will come back and kill your brother." So after that, to barricade them in every night to sleep, but he
oh,
never
sure.
told his brother what happened until much later,
Yeah.
much later. So then when they came to this country, it took 3 years. And when they came to this country, his father had remarried a woman who was equally as nasty, and she was pregnant. And his dad said to him, he was 15, and he said to him, "You are old enough to go out and work, and we're going to find you a place to stay, but you can't stay with us because we don't have the room." So he was thrown out on his own. He didn't speak a word of English, and he was 15 years old in a new country. And he went to work for somebody who found him a room in a room. And that man was an upholsterer. He was a furniture maker, and he took my father under his wing and taught him the trade.
Yeah.
And he went to school at night to learn English. And he was the nicest. I mean, my dad was a very, very humble, sweet man. And but he worked himself to the bone. And my mother always felt that she married beneath her station in life, even though she was an immigrant.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah, she
Now,
made no bones about it.
was your mother already in America? I mean, was she born in America?
No, she was born in Russia,
Okay.
and
Okay.
she was 5 when she came over.
Okay, okay. And like we were talking before I hit record, and Boston back in those days, and I'm from Chicago, is the same thing. You had neighborhoods that were ethnic. It's like, okay, there's a Polish neighborhood, there's a German neighborhood, there's an Irish neighborhood. So you grew up then in a Jewish neighborhood? Is that
It was like a Jewish ghetto. Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
everybody was Jewish.
Right. And
Um,
it's not
yeah.
uncommon to marry in your like group.
Well, I wasn't like I said, I almost became a Dennehy. Um, I was dating an Irish Catholic boy. My parents never felt, because when we would go out on weekends, somebody else would come and pick me up.
Okay.
But his mother found out about me, and she forbade him to ever see me again
Okay.
because they were as Catholic as my parents were Jewish.
See, I can definitely identify with that because my mother was the same exact way because she was always like, "Oh, find yourself a nice Irish Catholic girl." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yep.
I'll just go in the newspaper. There's a ton of them. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I got divorced when I was like in
Yeah,
my late
see,
40s, and my mom was like, "Find yourself a nice Irish Catholic girl that's never been married and doesn't have children."
ah,
Okay, so she's gonna be 18 or 20, and I'm 47, Ma. I don't think that's gonna work so great. Oh,
did you want to get married earlier?
you know what? It was pressure. It was, there was
Yeah.
no such thing as, living in sin. You couldn't do that. Being strict Irish Catholics, it's like, and I married a gal, my first wife, she was 23 and I was 24. And, it was, you couldn't you know, live together, none of that kind of stuff. That was, you're going to hell. And just Irish guilt, and I mean, Catholic guilt is a very real thing, and I had heaps of it. And so did my first wife. So we're like, well, we have to get married, and it's like we cannot not get married, It's like it was the time, and it wasn't uncommon for somebody in their early 20s to get married. I mean, that was
I
kind
was
of normal.
21. I
Yeah.
was 21. My mother said I was an old maid.
Yeah. I just the way we thought was, and then, okay, like my kids, so my mom's, grandkids, like, neither of them are married, and my oldest is divorced, and he's been living with a nurse for 2 years, and she's just a sweetheart. And my mom was like, "Oh, how is she?" Oh, and I'm like, "How come you're so cool with this now?" But when I was that age, it was
Well,
holy
do you have a
water.
daughter?
Pardon?
Do you have a single daughter?
I have a stepdaughter. I've got a single stepdaughter. She's 28, and my mom. Oh, how is she? Blah blah, and just no word about she has to get married. No word about it's like she's done a 180, and I'm like, you made my life hell when I was a kid. So it's like this is so unfair, so unfair.
Well, I ended up marrying the wrong person.
Okay,
And it was because of my parents, because I
yeah,
just had to get away from them. But it
oh
was the Jewish doctor. So really, what could be better? If my mother could brag to her sister-in-law that she was
right.
competitive with my Shirley.
Yes,
So
you
what
know,
if he was clinically depressed and bipolar and
yeah.
manic depressive? That was okay.
It was probably your fault that all that was going on.
Oh God, no, I found out about that on day one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, day one. But anyhow, I'm a happy person. That was the way I explained it. My days were the price I paid for the nights I had because I just love my days. I loved what I was doing, whatever
Yeah.
it was. I'm a social butterfly. I'm sure you can tell. I mean, I'm so embarrassed about our beginning. This is when.
Oh my. So let's talk a little more about the book here. It's
Okay,
I
so
I guess we could say it's what, historical fiction?
it's historical fiction.
Yeah, because the first part of the book is all true, and then you kind of jazz it up a little bit with a little more story.
Um, my father had never seen the face of his rapist, but he had one discerning character feature. He was missing a thumb on the right hand. And one day, my father had a furniture making business. And one day, this man comes in and says, he hears the voice from behind him. And he says, I understand you are the finest artist in the city. And I have some pieces that I need to have recovered or built. And I'm wondering if you could do it for me. And my father never forgot the voice, the menacing voice that he had heard.
Sure.
And so he turned around, and the first thing he saw was the missing thumb.
Oh God.
Now, it's not unreasonable to think that this guy from Poland that he had seen 20 years ago would catch up with him in America because a lot of immigrants came to Boston, Chicago, New
Oh,
York.
absolutely. Yep.
And so this was the guy, and my father turned around and saw him and didn't react. He just, yeah, I'll call you and we'll make an appointment to get together and I'll see what you want me to do.
Yeah.
And then he locked his door. I mean, in the book, he locks his door and he calls his brother in and he calls, I mean, the family in it. He tells them what actually happened. And one of the people that worked for my dad, not really, this is fiction, lived in the North End, was Italian, who was very connected. And he said, don't you worry, we're going to take care of this for you.
Wow. Now,
Um,
what motivated you to write this book?
um, a hand came over me and just said, start writing. And you
Okay.
know what, Patrick? I I had no story in mind when I sat down originally. I did not have an outline. I didn't have, and the second book as well. I just sit down and I start writing, and I don't even know where I'm going until I've already gone there.
Wow. Okay. So you're a
So it,
discovery writer. I like it. Very cool.
I mean, yeah, I just and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely loving it. It's like my next profession. I'm going to have another profession after this. I'm going to tell everyone I'm going to be a pole dancer.
Oh, jeez. So let me ask you this. How do you market this book?
Well, I did number one by doing podcasts like
Sure.
this. I love meeting people like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I speak at book clubs. I've done a few signings,
Okay.
and I've also knocked on bookstore doors and
Yeah,
libraries,
sure.
and that's how I've done it. Now I have a more traditional um, publisher doing my second book,
Okay.
and they're going to do more of the marketing. My first publisher was a hybrid publisher,
Yeah.
which is they do everything, but you have to put a little. I found it to be a very small amount of money up front,
Okay.
and then they don't take any money until you've made your initial investment back.
Okay. Oh, very good. Yeah, because
So,
I tell you what, there's a lot of predatory companies out there. It's like, give us $10,000 and we'll publish your book for you. And you know, they'll do kind of a half-assed job of it, and then you never hear from them again. It's
oh
very
yeah, and
sad.
I was very lucky.
Good.
Yes. Of course, they're the only ones I sent my manuscript to.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And
Okay.
they said, well, we'll call you in a few weeks and let you know if we accept it or not. And they called me in 3 days and they said, we'd like to publish the book.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
amount of money I had to put up front was, I thought, very small considering what they did.
sure. Now,
And also, they let me design the cover.
oh, and the cover is great, by the way. I absolutely
They,
love it.
no one would let me, I mean, from what I lets you design the cover,
Yeah,
but
you're
they
right.
did.
You're right. No, that's great. Now, research. What did that look like? Were you interviewing relatives? Yeah, how did that work?
Um, I did interview some relatives. I went to Ellis Island and I found my father's boat that he came over on.
Oh, is that
I
cool?
found his paperwork.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, have you met Siri?
Yeah.
Have you met Google?
Right.
And the library? So it's like there's a lot in there about uh, Ziegfeld Follies and New York City
Yeah.
and Ohio that I actually would just ask, what was going on in that time period then
Sure.
here.
Okay.
And I had
Now,
fun learning about that.
yeah. Now, when you're interviewing relatives, did you like record? Did you do like formal interviews, or was it just kind of like casual conversations? What did that look like?
Emails,
Oh,
actually
okay.
emails, because they're all over the country.
Okay.
And actually, my first cousin, who's her father was my father's brother.
Yeah.
My first cousin's daughter she did a lot of research and she would just send me things.
Oh,
I
neat.
didn't
That's
even
awesome.
know. I've
Yeah.
never met her.
Oh, that's great.
I know. I've never even met her, but
Yeah.
she just became so excited.
Wow.
And so she did a lot of history and through ancestry.com also
Yeah. Okay. Okay. You know,
was
I keep telling myself, I mean, my dad's gonna be 85. I'm lucky enough that both my parents are still alive. He's gonna be 85 next month, and my mom will be 85 in
what's her
January.
birthday? What's his birthday?
November
November?
24th. Yeah,
And I'm
November
November
24th.
26th.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And my brother is November 26th.
That's right. I remember that from the book. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Wow.
born the same day.
But I keep on telling myself I should really interview my parents. Because,
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
because again, they're from different countries, and just everything was just with us joking about like the Irish Catholic thing. It's like you have to marry an Irish Catholic girl. It just stuff like that. Just this. I remember, I was looking at a picture of when I was baptized, and there's my dad, my aunt and uncle were the sponsors, and I asked my mom, I said, "Were you the one holding the camera?" And she said, "No." I said, "Where were you?" And she said, "Oh, it's bad luck. I can't be at your baptism." I'm like, "What?"
What?
Yeah.
What? What?
Yes. Yeah. She thought, "Oh, that's bad luck. You should never go to your child's baptism." I'm like, "Oh my
I
God."
never heard that.
I never heard it either. And I'm like, "Where is this coming from?"
That's true?
I I guess according to her it is. But they also were brought up in a little village, and they didn't, that had a village well, no electricity, no plumbing, and they believed in banshees, and just it's a different it's hard to wrap our heads around it now, but just, yeah, and it's very, very real for her. So to sit down and interview her for that would be very interesting, I think,
And once she's gone, it's gone. So,
yeah, you're right.
I regret not. My father died 40 years ago. He died young.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that I didn't get to really find out what his mindset was all that time.
Yeah.
But I know that every Sunday, his father, no matter what, his father was the nastiest man I've ever known in my life. We would have to go visit him every Sunday with his evil wife.
Yeah.
And because no matter what, you had to have respect.
Yeah.
Whether you deserved it or not, you have to have respect.
I get it.
And he was very, yeah, you don't talk back, you respect your seniors. I mean, he drilled it into me to the point where, yeah, I had a very evil mother-in-law the first time around who
Ooh.
was there was no worse in the world. But my mother would say, you have to respect her. You have to respect her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I keep on telling myself I'm gonna do it and I should just do it. I I totally, totally get that. Even if your parents didn't come from an interesting like immigrant background or something, still it'd be nice to know your family history.
without question.
Yeah.
It's really important, and I regret not having delved into it deeper while they were alive.
Yeah. Now your mom lived to what, 105, you said?
Yeah, but she really left us a long time before that. Her
Oh.
mind was gone.
Oh, okay, okay.
Her
Yeah, see,
mind was gone.
you know, I want quality of life. I don't want quantity of life. It's
Oh no, I
there's
want quantity. I want to live forever.
I kind of have a feeling you will, Shirley. Just I haven't known you that long, but boy, you're a firecracker. I think you're just gonna keep going. So God bless
I
you.
told my husband he's got to stuff me, get me stuffed and prop me up on the sofa so I can. We live on water. We live on water. I love water. And I said, just prop me up on the sofa and let me look out at the water. You know, I'm never going anywhere. I'm going to haunt.
That's funny. So, what's next for you, Shirley? You're writing a book about human trafficking, right?
Yep. Which is a sequel to the book that is now being published.
Do we have a title of that yet, or
The book that's being published is called Stolen Lives,
okay? Can you
and
give us
it's
a
due
little
out
peek
next
into
summer.
what that is going to be about?
A couple of the characters from the first book are in it,
Okay.
but not for long. And yeah, it's about one of the children being kidnapped. Like on the first page,
Yeah.
the child starts screaming, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, I can't see. I'm blind." And a hand comes over her and says, "You're not blind, you have a blindfold on." And she had been snatched out of her bed in the middle of the night.
Oh, geez.
And so it goes on to her life in the next 5 years of what happens to her, or the next, maybe I think it's 3 years, and how she's kidnapped by human traffickers,
Wow.
and she
Okay.
manages she manages to escape en route to Texas, but she ends up falling off the side of a cliff in the dark, and she's rescued by a sister from the nearby convent
Oh, wow.
who
Okay.
hears her moaning, but she has amnesia.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, that sounds good. That sounds good.
So
When
there's
is
there's
when is that book coming out?
next summer,
Next. Okay. Very good.
hopefully supposed to be out next summer. And then the new one is just a sequel to that book.
Okay. And that'll come out a year after that, you think, or when would
Maybe
that?
even less than a year after that,
Okay.
because but even the way I got this publisher was through doing a podcast.
Oh, I'll be
I was
darned.
doing a podcast and with this man from Los Angeles, and he said to me, "I have to tell you something. I hate historical fiction. I've only read two in my life. The first one I couldn't even finish." He said, "But I couldn't put yours down." He said, "I have a friend who has a major publishing company.
Yeah.
Can I pass your information on to him?"
Sure.
And the very next day, the publisher called me and he said, "I understand you're writing a new book. he said, "Can I turn you on to my editor and would you keep her abreast of what you're doing?
Yeah,
And when you're finally finished, we might be interested in signing you." And I finished and sent them the manuscript, and that was it. They signed me like the next week.
outstanding. Very good.
So I haven't suffered yet.
Nor shall
Because,
nor shall you, darn it.
well,
Yes.
I hear such horrible stories about, people trying to get a book published and how long it takes. And I've
See,
sent out 30 manuscripts.
I've done both. I've kind of like flopped into things where I've independently published books and then I had a publisher just through a conversation after a podcast interview, we struck a deal. And now
That's
I have a
wonderful.
yeah, and now I have a new series and I want to do this one by myself. I don't want a publisher. So it all depends where you are and what you want.
Well, I'm still working full. I actually retired as a designer 2 years ago,
Okay.
but they wouldn't let me. So I'm
They
still
wouldn't let you.
I'm working. No, because I mean, my very first client 40 years ago, I've worked with for 40 years.
Oh,
And
geez.
he said, "I
Okay.
know you're retired, but I have a small project. Can you refer me to someone?" I said, "Absolutely not. I can't give you away." And so now there are five of those. I've worked with each one of them minimally 20 years or more.
Okay.
And so I'm back working full time.
Look at you.
So
You
yeah,
sound
but they
very,
don't
very busy.
aggravate me. They don't aggravate me.
Okay.
They're fun jobs.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's start wrapping this up here. Where can people find out more about you and your books?
You could just Google me, Shirley B. Novack. Um, on Facebook, it's Shirley B. Novack author, and there's Facebook at Shirley Novack. There's LinkedIn, which is I think it's at Shirley hyphen Novack
Okay.
2022.
Do you have a website?
Yeah. I have a business website,
Okay.
but it's okay because there's a lot of recipes on it as well.
I like recipes. What's your
Oh,
business?
and that's S Novack, Novack, and AND Associates
All right.
dot com.
I'm gonna put that in the show notes
Okay.
because who doesn't like a good recipe, darn it? And if somebody wants to get it, there's an email I'm sure, and they could get a hold of you.
Yep.
Okay.
Sobono, Sobonoe at AOL.com.
Okay.
See, that's giving away my age. And there's also Shirley at Novak and Associates.com.
All right. Well, very good. Well, Shirley, it was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. And the next time you're visiting your daughter, you'll both have to come for dinner.
That sounds great. I'm totally on board. I have to meet Stevie next.
Oh my God, she's sitting right here next to me.
Oh,
She's
gotta love our
5.
dog. Gotta love
How
our
is
dogs.
Clark?
Oh, Clark is great. He's sleeping right now. Otherwise, I'd put him on camera, but never wake a sleeping dog, right?
Yeah, she's sleeping here too, right next to me. She
Yeah, just
she follows me everywhere I go.
yep. Clark is my little shadow too. So God bless him. All right. Well, thank you again, Shirley, and stick around for the debrief afterwards. Thank you very
Okay, I'm
much.
here.